The day an industry shifted without warning. It didn't begin with a scandal or a headline. It began with a subtle tremor, a tiny change in behavior that almost no one noticed. Yet beneath that quiet shift, the foundations of an entire industry were beginning to bend. Every market believes it understands itself. Patterns seem fixed. Leaders feel untouchable. Customers act predictably. And then, without warning, a single moment disrupts everything. A small anomaly, a strange metric, a decision that seems harmless at first glance. But in business, the smallest deviations often carry the biggest consequences. To understand how this silent shift began, we need to return to a period when the industry felt invincible. Companies operated with the same strategies they had used for years, convinced the world would continue moving at their pace. Their maps were outdated, but the comfort they provided was irresistible. And comfort is the most dangerous place for any empire to rest. The story starts with an overlooked innovation, one that wasn't designed to rewrite anything. It aimed to improve a single experience, a single problem, a single moment of friction. No one predicted it would ripple outward. No one imagined it would become the catalyst for transformation. And in the shadow of the industry's giants, it quietly grew. At first, it seemed trivial. A new tool, a new service, a new behavior emerging in a small community of users. The giants didn't react. Why would they? Their models were stable, their customers loyal, their dominance unquestioned. But that confidence created a blind spot. And in business, blind spots become cracks. The reveal begins here. The moment when a quiet trend starts moving with unexpected speed. The moment when early adopters multiply. The moment when the familiar rhythm of an industry is interrupted by something subtle, yet relentless. Most people didn't see the shift coming, but those who paid attention understood that something in the market had changed, and nothing was going to move the same way again. The quiet trend gained traction faster than anyone predicted. What started as a niche behavior began spreading across small user groups, each adopting it for slightly different reasons. Some sought convenience, others sought control. A few simply liked the novelty. But together, they pushed the shift from curiosity to momentum. And momentum is where transformation begins. Analysts initially dismissed the movement as a temporary spike, a fad, a blip in the data that would fade as quickly as it appeared. But the numbers told a different story. Engagement rose steadily. Abandonment rates in traditional services crept upward. Customer expectations changed in ways the giants weren't prepared to understand. And with each passing week, the subtle tremor grew more pronounced. Inside the industry's dominant companies, early warning signs appeared. Reports surfaced showing unusual patterns in customer behavior. Small declines in usage, unexpected shifts in demand. Teams flagged the anomalies, but leadership brushed them aside. After all, the giants had survived trends before. They believed they would survive this one too. But beneath the surface, the shift was accelerating. Communities that had once relied on industry staples now gravitated toward the new alternative. Reviews spread across forums. Influencers shared unexpected praise. Competitors, once dormant, began to wake up, sensing opportunity in the cracks forming across the landscape. The early conflict simmered. The giants attempted small adjustments, minor feature updates, soft rebranding, subtle pricing tweaks, but none addressed the core issue. The world had tasted a new experience, and it was no longer satisfied with the old one. The quiet innovation had introduced a different rhythm to the market, and the giants were marching to a tempo that no longer matched. Then came the first unmistakable sign of disruption, a measurable drop in customer retention across multiple segments. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was undeniable. The shift had gone from anomaly to trend. And trends, once they gain momentum, rarely reverse. Behind closed doors, meetings turned tense. Executives demanded answers. Teams scrambled to interpret the data. But interpretation wasn't the problem. Reaction time was. The giants moved slowly. The shift moved fast. And within that widening gap, the seeds of a coming industry-wide conflict began to form. Because the giants were about to realize that the change they ignored was no longer knocking at the door. It was already inside the house. The tension erupted the moment the giants realized the shift was no longer an isolated trend, but a force with the power to reshape their entire domain. What began as hesitation turned into urgency. Reports flooded leadership teams. Forecasts darkened. Long-standing assumptions cracked under the weight of new data. The industry that once felt steady now trembled with uncertainty. Inside boardrooms, conversations grew sharp. Executives clung to familiar models, insisting the market would return to normal. But the numbers kept drifting in the opposite direction. Customers weren't pausing, they were leaving. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence. The rhythm of the industry had changed, and the companies built on old habits were too anchored to pivot quickly. Panic seeped into strategy meetings. Teams rushed to develop competing features, but every attempt felt like a shadow of the original idea that sparked the shift. The giants were reacting, not innovating. They launched promotional campaigns, offering discounts and rewards that once guaranteed loyalty. Yet loyalty built on habit evaporates the moment a better alternative appears. Meanwhile, the quiet innovator, the catalyst behind the shift, experienced its own turmoil. Growth surged beyond expectations, overwhelming the systems supporting it. Server loads spiked, support queues multiplied. The tiny team found themselves racing against time, trying to scale an operation designed for thousands to meet the needs of millions. What looked like meteoric success from the outside felt like controlled chaos behind the scenes. The pressure only intensified. Competitors sharpened their counterattacks. The giants prepared aggressive rollouts, leveraging massive resources to reclaim the ground they were losing. Analysts speculated about a collapse. Investors questioned sustainability. And the innovators, caught in the center, faced a future they hadn't planned for. The future of becoming a legitimate threat to the entire industry. Conflict surged on all sides. The giants fought to protect their legacy. The innovators struggled to maintain their integrity under rapid expansion. And customers, empowered by choice, influenced the market with every decision they made. The battleground wasn't defined by technology alone. It was shaped by trust, convenience, and the desire for something better than the old roadmap offered. Then came the fracture point, a moment when pressure, optimism, resistance, and fear collided. A glitch hit the new system at peak activity, exposing weaknesses that had gone unnoticed. The giants pounced immediately, framing the disruption as proof that the new trend was unstable. Critics amplified the narrative. Doubters resurfaced. But beneath that public scrutiny, the innovators discovered something crucial. The failure wasn't just a setback. It revealed a structural insight that would become their greatest advantage. A hidden inefficiency the giants had ignored for years. A flaw built into the very foundation of the industry. And in the middle of this unfolding conflict, one truth became impossible to ignore. The shift wasn't a disruption anymore. It was the beginning of a transformation none of the giants could stop. The moment of truth arrived not with triumph, but with clarity. The innovators took the flaw exposed by the failure and re-engineered their system around it, turning vulnerability into strength. What the giants dismissed as a temporary collapse became the blueprint for a more advanced, more flexible platform, one built for the future the industry had been too slow to see. When the revised system launched, it carried a confidence that hadn't existed before. It scaled smoothly. It adapted easily. It delivered a level of responsiveness the old guard couldn't match without dismantling the very frameworks they depended on. Customers noticed instantly. Satisfaction rates climbed, growth returned, and this time, it wasn't a surge. It was a steady, unstoppable rise. The giants tried to counter. They launched emergency task forces. They copied features. They attempted rapid pivots that contradicted years of their own strategy. But their reactions felt heavy and forced. They were adapting to a world that no longer aligned with the structures they had built. The market had shifted, and their legacy systems resisted every attempt to catch up. This was the climax, the point when the direction of the entire industry flipped. The innovators weren't just surviving, they were redefining the rules. The giants who once dictated the pace of progress now scrambled to keep up with a challenger that moved faster, listened closer, and understood the new rhythm of customer expectations. As the dust settled, the impact became undeniable. A single overlooked innovation had triggered a chain reaction that reshaped the competitive landscape. Customers gained more choice, entrepreneurs gained more confidence, and the industry, forced to evolve, entered a new era of creativity and experimentation. But the true lesson wasn't about technology or strategy. It was about awareness, about the danger of assuming stability in a world built on constant change. Because the shift didn't come from a massive breakthrough. It came from paying attention to something small, something quiet, something almost invisible. And in the end, that tiny spark became the beginning of an industry reborn.